we'll keep the party rolling. We've got national team men's freestyle coach Bill Zadick. I think I might get it right this time. World champ, NCAA champ. I screwed Terry up. I called him world champ. He was a Pan-Am champ.
He didn't mind.
I told him he'd get a pay raise from what I said. I talked to Bender about it. So a great opportunity to have him in, get a chance to talk to you a little bit about the techniques and the positions, and maybe even give you a little bit of insight as to what's going on tomorrow at Final X2. So thanks a lot. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. First off, I'll cover whatever you guys want, so please ask questions. But I want to thank you guys for being here and doing what you're doing. Clearly, before being the head coach, I was a national developmental coach. And even more than that, I had some great coaches when I was a young kid. My father, a guy named Mark Sprague, Floyd Vaughn, Denny Campbell, some other men that really impacted me in a positive way and set me on a path of success and promoted some philosophies that stick with me today and shape my coaching. And so it's really super important, and I want you guys to know how much that we value what you're doing for our youth and for the next generation of up-and-comers, the boys and girls that are, the Sarah Hildebrands and the Kyle Snyders and everybody. What you guys are doing right now is shaping that next group, and it's really, really important. So thank you. And with that, what Mike said we were going to do front and back supplies for freestyle today's over.
They left a crash pad on that.
Yeah, so I know KJ taught and I know Gary Mann taught, so pretty much everything's been covered. And I was going to show all three of the moves I know, but anyways, if you guys have questions, if there's something specific you would like me to talk about or speak about or cover, that's what I'm here for. And really, I want to learn as much as I'm here to talk and hear myself talk. I hear that enough anyway. So, but Mike said start in neutral, and of course, really important. I think there's some things that are really tactically and strategically important right now in the global wrestling climate. I think when we look at these things, the way I conceptualize them in my mind, if we look at them in a certain way, it lives up to the phrase of, wrestling's wrestling, right? It's not freestyle, it's not folk style, it's not even Greco. These are kind of universal truths. And when I was a developmental coach, what I tried to, one of the things I tried to focus on is consistencies and creating efficiencies. I'm really fascinated by efficiencies, and looking at trying to create an American wrestling system. And when I was a developmental coach, I actually brought Gary Mayab in and some other great coaches that have a lot more experience than me to try to organize some of this, and it still has a long ways to go and a lot to be desired, but it's something that we need to. And what I'm talking about is just there's some pillars of understanding that fundamentals, as you guys know, that once you understand this fundamental, then it's not putting an athlete or a program or a system in a box. It's just the opposite. It's like a tree, that if you understand this fundamental, that everything comes off of that. And that's kind of the way I think about wrestling. It's a platform of creativity. One is I'm limited by physics, right? I was created to move most efficiently in a certain way, in a vertical orientation, right? I move best with my hips under my head. I move best forward. I move second best backwards, and then left and right laterally. But worse is at angles, and when I get out of relationship with balance and stuff like that. And so thinking about those kind of things, oversimplifying, and then applying that to our sport, right, to the demands of our sport. And so freestyle, In the neutral position, it starts and stops with, not doesn't stop, but it's so important. Head position, right? And we all know this. We all know this stuff. But with some of the rules, if we had a bigger mat that had a full circle, the circle and the I don't like calling it push out. It's a step out, right? Because whatever. I got reasons there. I can talk about that later. But the edge of the mat. So let me give you a little visual here. If it's Tommy, right? Mm-hmm. So if Tommy's a better wrestler than me, and we both know it, right? If I go out and wrestle, I'm not going to stall, right? I'm not going to run from the guy. But if I'm wrestling in a folk style match, you see this all the time. I see this in the NCAA tournament, and this is something that bothers me. Is I'll circle this way, and then I'll circle this way, and then I circle here, and I park myself right on this, on the zone, right on the edge of the mat. I'm not going to put, if this was the real circle, I'm not going to put my back to the edge because I look like I'm stalling. But I'm smart enough to know how to circle this way and then circle that way, and then I'm right here. So if he shoots on me, I kick out and turn, and I fight this, and he's trying to drag my foot back in, and there's about 10, 12 seconds. I'm giving him this, and he's trying to pull me in, and it's a stalemate. We go back to the center. Or if, say, he hits me with a double leg, he hits my hips, I can, because there's no exposure, I can fall to my back, and I can leg slip or leg pass, spaghetti roll, stalemate it out, and there's 10, 12, 15 seconds of low probability of there actually being a score. And if that same scenario, the same two athletes, he's better than I am. If I do that in freestyle, I'm bleeding points, right? If I park myself on the edge, he's going to blow me out of bounds. I'm out, I'm in. This is 1 point, this is not, right? This is 1 point plus continuous action. So that's a very dangerous place for me to be. So I have to learn how to be right here. In order for me to stand in the middle, I have to deal with his offense, whatever he's bringing at me. And that's why I say it starts and stops with my head position. Good head position supersedes a good stance by a large margin. And of course, good stance and being mobile is really important, right? And that's what a good stance is. It's about being in a defendable and aggressive position where you're mobile. Now, it's all relative, right? It's relative to many things. My athleticism versus his, and all sorts of stuff. Jordan Burroughs gets away with standing up quite a lot out of a stance. He's got a rounded back. He stands up like this, but he's quick enough that he gets his head in the way to defend and be offensive relatively a lot more than his opponents. So he can get away with that, right? So, but it's still about that head position. It's superior to my opponent. And so we spend a lot of time thinking about this. And so when I'm working with the national team, I'm analyzing what we do a lot of statistics. I'm looking at what scores are most proficient, what scenarios were happening the most, which are we most effective, and we should be investing most of our time in doing. But we're always talking about this. It's like a constant, right? I've explained it to our athletes that when I say good body position, they all understand that it's one term, but good body position, there's 5 or 6 components to what good body position. Head position, knees bent, on my toes, hips under me, all those things, right? Really what it's about is are you mobile and are you effective? So again, there's some relativity there, but the second piece to this head position thing is head position and good body position in general. It's offense and defense at the same time. There's not two different postures, and that's another thing that I think is very dangerous for athletes. It's very important for them to understand, and if they don't, it's incumbent upon us to present that. Listen, this is what's happening, right? we've all seen it. We've all done it. I've done it myself. Made the mistake many times where I'm aggressive and I'm the hunter and I'm going out and I'm determined, so I'm going after the guy. And as I go after my opponent, he has very little for me. And then I get a 2-point, 3-point, 4-point lead, and then I start feeling comfortable, and then my posture changes. And instead of being the hunter and going here, now I kind of relax and I let him come at me. And that creates the first flaw is it creates a psychological difference. Secondly, then all my body position and tactical things break down from that. And so a lot of talking, and I apologize. Tell me to get moving if you want. But I think it's really important to understand this, and this is really probably I'm talking about this a lot because this is where our team is right now. We have a very good team, obviously. No matter who makes the team, we have very good athletes, and we're starting to see a lot of depth. And the technical things are extremely important. But where we're at, I think the biggest leap forward that our team needs to make is psychologically. And not that they're not lacking, but I think there's an opportunity to really advance and understand what they are, which includes understanding really how good they are. You really got to think about it. Let's break this down. Let's create some statistics and analyze how good are you, and then develop some confidence from that, which allows us to then continue to be even better and spread that gap. And this head position thing is right at the crux of it. It is so important. It is so important. And so anyways, just from the start, we all know what good head position is. Angle and elevation to a certain degree. There's obviously I can get too low to where I'm not mobile anymore, and then I'm not very effective. Along with the head position and using that as a tactical advantage, a secondary thing is our arms, right? In not reaching. We get again. It's going to sound like I'm beating up on folk style. I really am not. I'm just purely from a technical standpoint. When I analyze it, there's a higher demand. There's a higher skill demand. There's a higher technical demand in international wrestling than there is in folk style wrestling, and just naturally as it should be. Just like there's 5% of high school athletes go on to college, less than 5% of collegiate athletes go on to the next stage, right? So you're really skimming the top percentage, and so it just naturally becomes more challenging. So with our head position and our hands, what I'm talking about is in learning how to engage, being relaxed where we're not creating liabilities. We're not creating openings, holes. So reaching and stuff like this is very bad. And sometimes we get away with a little bit. Again, there's some relativity there, but starting with head position and just being able to close the gap, something as simple as this. It doesn't look like much, but I promise you, he can feel it. I have maybe 10 degrees of an angle and an inch of elevation, and it's the whole game. And as long as I'm being diligent, I'm winning. And I'm winning this match. One, because from here, I can unleash most of my offense, and he cannot. I've already beat his best defense. His number one defense is his head position, right? So I've already beat that. Secondly, if he goes to do anything offensive to me, I'm going to feel and sense his movement, and I should be, if I'm wrestling like I should, like we all coach our athletes to, I should be reacting ahead of him and staying ahead of him, right? Tortoise in the hair a little bit. So if he goes to, if I can shoot right here, but if he goes to move, I can stay into him, right? I can crowd him. I can smother his offense. So, a good defense is a good offense, right? That kind of thing. But head position is both offense and defense at the same time. It's one position, and it's not two different postures. And that's really, really powerfully important for our guys at the highest level. And I don't want to, I can give you a lot of really good examples from the World Championships last year. I can give you good ones and bad ones, right? When we were offense, it's pretty clear. I can just tell you that, and you guys can go back and watch the video, and you'll see it. You'll see it in all of our guys, our best guys, everybody in the lineup, right? So that one thing is really super important. And then again, it's this pillar of central understanding. If we have superior head position, then we can be creative in our style of wrestling. And we have 10, last year we had 10 unique individuals. They all had different styles of wrestling, but they all were pretty good at head position. And some different. But the way that their offense and their careers and their styles manifest themselves after that is pretty unique. And so, but again, just head position right here. Head position, and then keeping my arms relaxed. Sports science will just tell you that relaxed muscles are quicker, they're more responsive than tense muscles. So being up here and this kind of stuff, we see a few of our guys once in a while, you get antsy and it's short time or whatever, and they're ahead by a point, and they get this thing like they're really protected, and I just start sweating because that's a really tense position. I mean, like what we should be doing is just be loose here and just relax and just keep doing what we've been doing. Keep doing what we've been doing. So relaxing my arms as I make contact, and we do with this tactical battle in the center of the mat, right? Everything's going, in a folk style match, everything's going to the edge. In a freestyle match, everything's going to the center. So with both the step out and also the shot clock scenario, right? So just for clarification, shot clock scenario, it's not who's most aggressive. It's who's holding the center of the mat. The center, that 1 meter circle that's in the center, that is viewed as strategically superior. So he can hold the center, and I can be out here doing all the offense in and out, in and out, in and out. I'm going to get put on the clock because he's holding the center. And I think it's misunderstood domestically. What we see internationally is pretty consistent. I think it's pretty fair for the most part. Of course, there's some of the biases, but understanding that battle is where this head position just elevates the importance, right? And so as I close the gap and I go to implement offense, having head position first, being relaxed but mobile with my feet, and then my arms. I've been talking with our guys about my arms. I should never reach and extend. We all know this kind of stuff. I don't reach. I should let things come to me. And if I have to reach for something, it's too far away. I should close the gap until I can grab with very little extension. Because any kind of extension, it creates vulnerability. So this kind of stuff here. And so then we get into a lot of wrist fighting, right? A lot of wrist and hand battles. This kind of stuff. So wrist to wrist, anytime we're engaging hand fighting, it's always straight across, meaning this way, and not at an angle. Anytime we reach across, of course, I'm creating an angle where he can drag me. I can maybe drag him, but I'm not into splitting differences 50-50. I want all of it, and I want to give him none of it. So here, when I engage, I have head position, I grab, and I move to the same side. And when I pull, I like to pull down. Okay, a lot of guys, arm drags and things like that, you're pulling, and they're pulling him, trying to pull this guy to me. And that's not good. I'm going to pull me to him. Okay, so it keeps me going the direction I want to go, which is forward. I want to go through the guy. So I want to keep things oriented in a forward, progressive manner, so that I'm always, it's tactically sound as far as the rules go, but it's also strategically superior as far as me implementing offense versus him. So head position here, as I attack the wrist, I'm going to circle to this angle and pull it straight to the floor. Straight to the floor, and then I can start attacking from that position. And what that does is it, of course, leaves me invulnerable. But just from a physics standpoint, when I pull straight down, it puts a lot of pressure on this long chain, right? And it's putting it all back here on his low back. It puts a ton of weight on his toes. And then his natural reaction, of course, when I pull down, is to pull up, which only invites more offense for us. So whatever we do from there, I like clean, simple stuff, right? A little quick drag to the snatch. I was a high crouch guy. I might elbow pass to my high C. I might circle this way, and the guy squares up to us, and we sweep the other side. Knee pulls on both sides, right? A guy doesn't react. I might just go here. Knee pull, head inside, knee pull, head outside. He squares up. I might knee pull that way. The other thing about these angles is creating an angle is a forward action more than a circular action, if that makes sense. So I wish we had that meter circle. But if this guy, again, if this is obvious stuff, just tell me to speed up. But a lot of times I'm creating an angle and I want to go around the guy. And that's, if this guy's any good, right? I'm training to be a quality opponent. A guy I'm way superior than, that if I can do this around the guy, I'm going to beat that guy anyways. I'm not worried about that guy. I'm worried about the guy that knows what he's doing, and when I circle, he stays with me. So it's harder to create this angle going this way. So I do that by going this way. Okay? So it's really important for our athletes to understand that, because the obvious is I want to get over there. So I go here. Well, he just stays with us, and it becomes that cat fight where I look like I'm chasing my tail. So if I get a little bit of an angle, I'm going to go forward to exaggerate it. Okay, I'm using my hand right now, but really it should be my head. So here. Now I might step to the circle, but I'm still going in to increase that angle. So I go in. And now if I look where I'm square and how it exaggerated that, and it opens up opportunities for me, whatever you do.
Is there a side that you prefer to go to, or that you should be going to?
Not really. No. I think, again, it's relative. I mean, I'm assuming you're asking like lead leg versus trail leg, or
right.
I mean, if I'm a left leg lead, I'm probably going to where my offense is. So that's what I would say.
I forget who it was what was saying, circle the trail leg.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why I was asking,
Yeah.
if you had.
No, I think that's common. I think that's pretty common. I don't think it's wrong. The reason I'm a little more ambiguous is because I leave the door open to individual style, right? So, predominantly yes. We're circling to the trail leg because if I'm a right leg lead, if you're circling to my left, it's bringing my lead leg into you, right? So yeah, I would say. But each athlete, and I don't know how well I do this, Gary can maybe talk about because he sees me in the room. I know what I was good at, right? I was a high crouch guy. Everybody knew I was going to shoot high crouches. But it opened up other things for me. I know that all my athletes aren't going to be high crouch guys. Statistically, that's just not accurate. Statistically, a single leg, head inside single leg, scores 80% of the takedowns. 80% of the finishes are a simple go behind, off the head to the inside single. So one of the things I strive to do is coach each athlete to their abilities and their style, to both use my experience of what I know is possible to what their assets and strengths are, and not, well, do it this way because this is what I do. And so I think when you think about stuff like that, that might impact which way you're going. And the reason I say that is because if he's a left leg lead, and I'm a right leg lead, I'm a right side high crotch guy. But I learned how to attack this side because I got this look a lot. But there's another level of skill where you can shoot a high crotch on a trail leg. But I would say it's a much more advanced skill, but it's actually very effective if you know when and where and why it's there and why it works. Sometimes you get this guy, I can really and get this leg so exaggerated that this leg's so far back it literally can't go back any further. And as long as I don't shoot at a bad angle, if I shoot like this, I'm in trouble. But there is an option where that leg's so far back, and I create this angle. If I get to this back leg, all the weight's over here, and this leg just comes right up. And it's very effective. And there's some guys doing it on the international level right now that are pretty effective, shooting at a trail leg. So, a lot of, so with this tactical stuff, it kind of leads right into this. With this tactical game, head-to-head, there's a lot of wrist fighting, there's a lot of drags. Underhooks and 2-on-1s are still extremely powerful, both offensively and defensively. We spend a fair amount of time in those areas, and even if we're an open wrestler, especially if we're an open wrestler, some athletes, well, I don't like tie-ups. I like to wrestle from outside. Especially that athlete has to be good here because of Jordan Burroughs, right? Use him as an example in a lot of different areas for a lot of good reasons. Everybody that tries to beat Jordan Burroughs, they try to tie him up. They try to lock him down, right? And so he has to be good at keeping head position, clearing hands. Guy gets an underhook. I have to be able to clear this and clear it to a score. And so we focus a lot of that, clearing positions to a score for a strategic reason. Because if we're just clearing stuff, guys tend to flee. He gets an underhook and then I'm doing this and I'm backing away. And this guy, again, the good guy, the quality opponent, right? The guy that we need to beat to win a medal, if I just give ground to clear, he's just going to take ground until I go out of bounds. And these guys are plenty happy to run me out of bounds 10 times in a row and take the tack. So I've got to learn how to attack. And for me, again, this starts with head position. So if he's got an underhook, the first thing I'm going to do is establish head position. And how I do that is I drop my hips down and in. And this is good Greco skills. Down and in, and I shrug. I use a little shoulder pop to create a little, like just an inch. All I need is an inch. You give me an inch and I'm going to drive a bus through it. But my hips go down and in, boom, head position. At the same time as I'm going down and in, right? Proactive, progressive wrestling. At the same time, on my underhook side, I don't want to fight him up here. This is where he's big and strong. So as I go down and in, I want to get this arm low. And on the weakest part of his arm as I can, I'm going to circle to it. And I can fish it out of there. I'm kind of doing it a little bit sloppy, and there's more space than I would like so you guys can see. But really, I want no gaps here. When there's space between his hips and my hips, that's a bad thing, right? That gives his hips authority. It gives them room to rotate, step in, take position. If the guy's got some grapple skills or trips or a lot of stuff there. So I want to smother this. I want down and in, right here. Now I'm winning this battle. I have head position. My arm's coming down still a little bit high, but I'm going to bring it down low. And I'm going to get some space between his chest and mine. I'm going to either go chest, waist, or flank. And I'm going to keep circling, hips tight, until I can take this baby out of here. And as soon as I take it out, boom, now I can score. Clear it to a score. See, a lot of guys do a real common technique here is to, let me go in steps. So I want to clear it. That's first priority. And that's what we talk about in the room. Clear it first. Clear it with authority. I mean, own the position. Because sometimes we'll get here about halfway out and then I start diving into shots, and that's no good, right? It's going to beat the lower tier opponent. It's not going to beat the guy you need to beat to win the medal, or the state tournament, or the sectionals to qualify for state. That's the guy you're training, or gal. That's the person you're trying to beat, right? Quality opponent. So I have to own this position before I move on to something else. So, and a lot of times, I might flank, and this is the ideal when I circle to it, and it's tough on his elbow, right? You can see that. So I want to be careful in practice to not hurt my partners. But understand the position too. Once I create a little space, I can also front block and extend and get my elbow back inside. Once my elbow's inside, now it became my position. And now I can go offense. So own the position first. And so this little misdirection here, guys got head position, and I circle boom, and sweep this other way, it's a really good technique. James Green's actually really good here. He doesn't do it as much as his skill probably permits, because he's really good there. Gadisov, the former 97 world champ, that Snyder beat in the finals in 15, he was really good here. Sometimes rope it up a guy a little bit, extend, let a guy dig an underhook, that kind of side, boom, and then sweep. Get a little bit of extension and sweep, get him really stepping and pulling. But there's enough space here, right? He's a master of this position, so even though it kind of looks like I'm breaking all the rules I just made, he's got head position, he's sagging, he's got space, and now he's getting the legs coming to him. So as this guy really digs, this hand is doing a lot of work. And then it pulls. And you can sweep to the far leg, you can sweep head inside, you can sweep head outside. You know, that's more style specific to your individual, but I think both are good. I think the key element there that we all know is when you get to the body, are your hips under you? And that's the biggest problem that I see with our really good guys. Dave Taylor, Dave Snyder, Burroughs, all of our guys, if they take your body to your offense, if you get to his body with your hips under your head, that's the way God made my body to move. If I get there here, I have a high probability of being successful. If I get there here, maybe not. Maybe, because I'm just gritty, doggone tough. But we're always trying to put ourselves in the ideal position. And another statistic. When we get to our feet with our hands locked around the leg, we score 92.9% of the time. Pretty powerful statistic. So what does that tell me? What does that tell my guys? Get to your feet. So that shapes how we attack. It shapes our setup. It shapes our shot selection so that when we're drilling, when we're sparring, when we're rehearsing, before it gets to the live scenario, that we're creating muscle memory, timing, sensory awareness of an attack that promotes me getting to my feet. If I get to my feet, I'll play 93%. I'll roll the dice on that on our guys every time, right? So that's really important. And I see that a lot with guys that have impeccable timing. They have impeccable situational awareness as far as recognizing an opportunity, but they're not committing fully to the attack. And you see guys slapping at stuff, right? And so that's just kind of my long-winded explanation. Guys doing this, this, and this, and that. You know, head bobbing and faking in and out. Because they're waiting for this perfect clean sweep where the guy's just going to stand up and say, hey, take my hips. And really what it's about driving that bus through the 1-inch gap. Full commitment of your body. Take your body to it. So again, another psychological thing that we are working on is understanding how good we are. If we put ourselves in wrestling scenarios, we're winning them the majority of the time. So the reason we slap at stuff is because we're apprehensive, and this guy's pretty good. But if I actually commit to fully getting to the action, we're winning those by majority, 60, 70%. So I'll play the numbers. I know we have the gas, I know we have the heart and the drive, and I know these guys are committed. So don't worry about giving up one. If you only have 1 or 2 in a match, then you should worry about giving up 1. If you have 10 in a match, you're going to win. You're going to win. 60% of the time you're going to win. 40%, you're not even going to lose 40%. You're just not going to score 40%. It might go 60-0. You might win 6-0, right? In that scenario. Well, if it's all 2-point scores, it'd be 12-0. Tech ball. So I think it's important. It's important for me as a coach to know those things so that I can give confidence to my guys. Hey, look at this. Look what you're doing. This knee slap, beautiful. Your timing is right on point. It is there. The guy's weight is all on this foot. You have head position. Your hips are lower than his. Strike. Go all the way to it. Don't reach at the leg and try to pull it to you, because that's helping his hips, right? That forward proactive. If this leg's way forward and I do this and try to pull it, he's going to slam into me with his hips. Sprawling stuff my head. Which is totally different than if I pull me to it. It gets me to my feet. And then I can finish. And I can go on to whatever my next step is, my transition. Which is, did Terry already teach?
Yeah.
Did he cover transitions?
Some transitions at the beginning.
I saw it on the schedule, which is a real fun position for me to teach too. Transitions, because I think it's super important, but it's so often a missed opportunity because we go one action at a time. Pick him up, slam him down. I got a deep waist, or I got a deep just tripod. I got this, and I let go and come up here. Oh my goodness, there's so much, right? There's so much there. But that's another session. So, I don't know where we're at here. Yeah. Well, I think we started about 10 minutes late, so I can go. I don't want to cut Clarissa short. So, yeah, not. So as you can see, not a lot of technical substance as far as revolutionary. This is the top secret stuff that we're doing. It's not. You guys know the drill. There is the best kept secret in the world. It's hiding right in front of your face. It's all right there. Work really hard at it. Full commitment. Be engaged mentally every moment that you're in this room. Every moment. And that's what makes Kyle Snyder. He's a great athlete. He's really powerful. He's got other physical assets. His greatest gift, Jordan Burroughs' greatest gift, those are other guys, Dake, Taylor, Cox, Joe Colon, right? What a stud Joe Colon is, right? We all know his story, right? Wasn't the number one guy, but goes on and wins a medal. And all those guys, the thing they share is they love what they're doing and they're really engaged. They don't come into the practice room and go through the motions. They don't just listen to what I say and just come in and say, oh, Coach Zadick's going to run practice. And I don't have to think about it. I'll just do whatever he says. And my opinion, that's why those guys are those guys. Because of that one thing separates them far more than any other physical asset or anything else. When I was at Iowa, I was fortunate to have Coach Gable as my coach all the years I was in college, and then he coached 1 year after. after I graduated. But I was there. I graduated in '96. His last year as the head coach was '97. But I was there until 2004. And I know Lloyd was there. It was round Gable, but not kind of in the same way. But and I see this in other rooms. I see this in rooms all over the country. You have a great coach, right? You got 40 athletes in the room. Everybody in the room knows who everybody else is. Meaning there are 4 or 5 at the top, and there are 4 or 5 at the bottom, and there are 30 in the middle. And everybody, after you've been there a month or so, everybody knows who everybody else is within a degree or two, right? Pecking order. Now there's a little bit of physical gifts and God-given ability that impact that order a little bit. But the mentality of being engaged is what separates everybody else, right? That's why the 5 at the top are the 5 at the top, and the 5 at the bottom are the 5 at the bottom, and everybody else in the middle can't decide what they want to be. They want to be this guy, but they're just not willing to be the first guy out the door, the first guy to the mailbox, the first guy to the cafeteria in the morning for breakfast. Kyle Snyder, he wants to be that guy. When I pick him up for an appointment and we're driving to USA Wrestling, he wants to be the first guy to touch my truck because he wants to win that battle. He wants to be the first guy out of the truck. It's just that level of competitiveness. And not that you have to, compete to the drinking fountain, but it's the revelation that this guy is switched on. And he is thinking, the crazy thing is, it comes from his mom and dad, 1,000%. Because when I started working with him when he was a 17-year-old kid, he was already that way. Now, he didn't have the knowledge and the information that he has now, but he was switched on. This kid, if I told him something, I'd go work with him. Hey, Tommy, do this, blah, 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 okay? And I'm going to walk down there and I'm going to work with these guys. And when I get to the far end of the room, I'm going to look over my shoulder and see what he's doing. The kid's doing it. He was doing it. And he's working with his training partner. His training partner might have been a better athlete or a quicker learner, like immediately. So if I was working with Kyle and Garrett Ryan, kid heavyweight for Columbia, is from Phoenix. He was living with us at the time. Garrett would typically get things quicker than Kyle. But when we come back tomorrow, Kyle would have it down better. And not that Garrett was lazy. He wasn't. He was a very hard-working kid, really smart. But Kyle just loved it. He just pursued it. He was just outside the room. He was just hungering about it, thinking about it when he was eating dinner. You're playing Uno or whatever you're doing. It's like your apps on your phone that are running in the background. His mind's running in the background that wants resolution. And he's figured it out. And so all this stuff, I'm getting long-winded now. All this stuff really, in my opinion, is the most critical aspect of where our team is right now and what we need to do to get to the next level. It's the same idea that when I was a developmental coach, this is stuff that I was trying to implant in those guys in our resident programs, our EAP program that Coach Jackson oversees directly. And we have in all 3 styles. Gary's oversees the Greco, and Clarissa and Jeff Medina oversee the women. That's what we're trying to implant in these young athletes, is how to be a professional. The moves, the technique, all that stuff is important, and we're going to get that. But how to self-evaluate, how to adjust, how to be your own best coach on an everyday basis is the most important, number one aspect of what I want for our resident program. And we have Jaden Cox right now living there full-time, who is an excellent mentor and example for those young guys. It's a Gable model. It's not something that I invented, right? Gable was doing it in the 70s. When I came to Iowa, we had the Hawkeye Wrestling Club as a freshman. There were 11 postgraduate athletes who had a legitimate chance to make a world team, and I was training with those guys. And that's what helped elevate me and my father and Mark Sprague and other innovative coaches like you guys that set me on this path and instilled in me a desire to learn and be hungry for information and not be stale with, well, this worked yesterday, so it's going to work tomorrow. Maybe not. So,
Question.
Yeah.
We've heard a lot of good points of focus over the past couple of days of what U.S. teams are doing and what you're focusing on for the world. How much of an impact do you feel that would make if the kids starting earlier, so the high school kids going into college, how does that change the landscape?
monumental. Monumental. That's why I let off with thanking you guys. Because if you guys are teaching these young kids this, my job's done, right? I mean, it makes me look great, but I'm the type of coach that I'm aspiring to sit in the corner and fold my hands, and that's what happens. Because it takes time, right? It's not easy. I mean, when you study LTAD models, long-term athletic development, wrestling is for sure maybe one of the most late maturation sport, right? 10 years, 10,000 training hours, all that stuff. There's some new ideologies and thought processes, but essentially it takes a long time to be an expert level, skill level in our sport. And to combine the technical, tactical, and mental abilities to blend them all together to where it's really functioning like a Swiss watch. But if we're doing that at the youth level, we're gonna be so far ahead of I mean, I'm telling you, we have the athletes.
Does it change folk style?
It is already changing folk style. And I don't want to get too political, but RTCs, hugely important. We need to do everything we can to continue to promote, advance, and advocate for RTCs. They're not perfect, and there's some hurdles to overcome, but I'm telling you, they are the wave of the future, and they are the health and the strength of American wrestling, regardless if it's USA Wrestling or some other organization that kicks us out and takes over. RTCs need to be healthy and strong because it's bottom up, top down at the same time, and it's critically important. When I was an athlete after I graduated Iowa, my professional outlet was to become an assistant coach, and I was being paid by the university, and it's good. It's just not as effective as what's happening right now because I have loyalty, right? I have responsibility. So if you're paying me $50,000 to be your volunteer coach, and you say, "Hey, I need you to train," that's all you got to do. Well, I know that, but I know that you want me to train him, right? And there's $50,000 paying my bills and buying me food that are telling me to train him, and what I need to do is train me, and that's not a bad thing. But the little shift in there has made all the difference in the world. Look at it. 10 years later, right? 10 years ago, we didn't have RTCs. My first year as an assistant coach, when I retired, we did not have RTCs. In the first quad, when I was an assistant coach at USA Wrestling, we had 7 medals in the entire quad. We had 7 medals last year just in men's freestyle. 36 or 38 in our entire system. Men's and women's freestyle Greco at all age levels. We set a record last year. We broke a record, and that's so the way it impacts collegiate wrestling. 16 of 20 NCAA finalists are either developmental world team members or full-time freestyle athletes. So 75%, right? And the rest of the field of 80 doesn't support that. And I haven't done the numbers exactly, but it's more like 40%. 40% of the rest of the field. So it might look like it's a knock on freestyle. It's actually just the opposite. What it tells you is that your freestylers rise to the top. They're the cream of the crop. Yanni Diakomahalis, Dayton Fix, Gable Stevenson, those guys are great wrestlers, and they would have been great wrestlers no matter what. Would they be as good as they are, as soon as they are, without RTC access? Hard to argue. So I know there's the haves and the have-nots, and I think that's important. And I'm not trying to diminish those consequences or results, but we have to be very diligent to understand how healthy this is to advance our sport. I mean, and we're having wild success economically at the NCAA level. ESPN is continues to grow their coverage, and that helps our sport. But the leaders are going to pull everybody else up. We're not going to advance our sport by pulling the leaders back. And I think that's very, I think it's critical. I think it's probably the most important thing I do in my job is keep that going.